live and I didn't know.
We're all live, so now I need to get you guys out of practice. So how do I put you out of practice?
I see attendees popping up in there.
Just so you know what my shirt says, Black Lives Matter.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Because all you can see is really the black, and so yeah. That was a freebie given away to all the speakers at the National Black Book.
Oh, cool.
So I thought that was cool. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they sent it out ahead of time so you guys would have it in time.
Yeah.
That's a great idea for a conference. And you can actually wear the t-shirt at the event.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas I'm wearing a t-shirt from 2012 with the countdown of the Mayan calendar.
I have a xenomorph on mine. I am a horror author, so but it doesn't matter because you can't see it.
Yes. I had the privilege of being there on 2012 on December 21st at a Mayan temple.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a green sweater, but it looks pink or purple for some reason because of the green screen effect.
Okay.
Oh.
That's probably why your face is so washed out also.
Yeah.
No, I kind of look like Santa Claus. Maybe that's how I could make some extra money during the lockdown, is be a virtual Santa Claus.
Hey, that's not a bad idea.
No, it's not. Just have them pop on the video.
How is Christmas going to work this year? Are there going to be any Santas for kids to go see? So if you can do a
from what I understand, no. Most of them have canceled. I know Macy's canceled theirs.
And if Macy's canceled theirs, everybody else will follow suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will be amazed if there is a Macy's by Christmas, to be totally frank.
Yeah. Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
I think this Christmas is what they're banking on to try to save them. And if it doesn't do it, it doesn't do it. So it might be December 31st before they actually shut the door. But
I imagine that's true for a lot of businesses.
I think that's true for a lot of businesses.
And you've also got some of the harbingers of change, like I think Walmart and Target both said they're not going to do Black Friday this year.
Yep.
And that's, as may be, but if they don't do it this year, will they ever do it again? And what does that mean for the kind of the demise of brick and mortar retail?
Yeah, it's very scary because we don't know what that's going to look like.
Yep.
Yeah, I was working for a restaurant when it all started. I quit in August, but I mean, I don't know how many small privately owned restaurants are going to be around after this because it was limping along.
Yep.
That's actually part of why I quit. I said, you can't afford to have somebody doing your bookkeeping. You need to just do your own.
My day job's in the travel industry, and I got laid off back in July. So
most of my favorite little restaurants around, where I live up here in North Denver, they're gone. Most of them are gone. It's heartbreaking and very sad. Some of the places that had the best senior discounts were cafeteria style, with the where you serve yourself. They're all gone. They're all gone.
I only know of a couple that have shut down here in Colorado Springs so far that were, the smaller restaurants. I know that there were so many that were starting to open. I guess March around that area must be a good time for restaurants to open or something because there were so many that were trying to launch and then they paused and now they've all been.
Apparently we are live.
Yeah.
Because we're getting questions in and one of them talked about the Santa Claus Institute.
Oh, okay. So
they must have heard us.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start unless we hear otherwise from our host. Okay. So, what's that?
All I said was, please do go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're going to get started. You're at the Amazon, KDU, and other publishing platforms. Sorry, you've been listening to us talk about random other things. We were waiting for the go-ahead. So just so everybody, attendees know, I will be monitoring the Q&A. So if you have questions for the panel, just shoot those through. And whenever we have a moment for me to look at it, I'll do that. And if I can, I'll work it in when I can. I'm going to have each of you guys introduce yourselves. I'll call out names because everybody's a different volume on here and everything. I don't want people to get talked over, and I'll try and switch up orders as we're doing the questions and stuff like that. When you introduce yourself, do your normal intro, but also let us all know how you're published. Are you traditionally published? Do you have something on Amazon? You know, that sort of thing, just so we have a basis for the rest of the discussion. And you're welcome to share your screen if you have a book cover up or something like that. You're welcome to share that when you're introducing yourself, and then just stop share when it's time to move to the next person. So for the intros, I'm going to go in the order of who's on my screen. So Jim, that has you first.
Okay, I am Jim Henderson. I'm a science fiction author. I am only on Amazon, so Amazon exclusive. So my books are up here. There's some lag there, but total 8 books that are all in a related series so far. It's called the Mantis Saga, science fiction about a small ship and its crew running around having all kinds of adventures, aliens, space battles, and whatnot. And as I mentioned, those are on Amazon. My first one was published about 2 years ago, and the rest since then. So I certainly wouldn't say I'm any kind of expert on Amazon, but I have gone through the publishing process there several times and seen some good and bad as I've done so.
Okay, Brenda, you're next.
I'll have to unmute. I am Brenda Hardwick, and I am a fantasy and also publish in metaphysical self-help. And so I'll do those two first. That's Allowing the Magic and Miracles is the new one I just published in May. Laughing Your Life Healthy. Oh, which way is the camera? Ah, there it is. That was my first one that I published. My fantasy series, I have 2 out. Harlem Angel, I published back in 2018, and I first published with the help of a publisher. It was self-publishing with a publisher, and I pulled it from them in 2018 and republished it under my own label, Shine Your Light Publishing, through Amazon. Over the lockdown, I published The Conductor, which is book 2 in the series, book 2 in the circle. So, and it's published under Shine Your Light Publishing. So I published through Amazon because quite honestly, it's the one that I started with. And so it's easy to do. And, but there was a reason that I did my own publishing company. So I have my own label, and we'll talk about that more when we get going.
Okay, Daniel, you're next.
I'm Daniel Willis. In addition to being an author, I do write both fiction and nonfiction, both of which almost have something to do with historical items. My fiction books also have a fantasy tint to them. This is just came out this year as a bunch of short stories I wrote. Some are historical, some are ghost stories, some are just straight gay fiction, gay fantasy. I have all kinds of stuff in there. I also started off as a traditionally published author. My original publisher then went out of business, so I took over self-publishing. And after a few years of doing self-publishing and getting really good at it, I realized, you know what, I could do this for other people. So I started my publishing company, DX Varosh Limited. It publishes in 5 genres: science fiction, fantasy, mystery, LGBT fiction, and historical fiction.
All right. Corey, you.
Hi, I'm Cory Doctorow. I'm a science fiction novelist primarily and also an activist, and I work in issues related to competition and technology with a nonprofit called the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And in particular, I've spent both my activist and writing career fighting over digital rights management and the idea that as authors, we should have the right to decide how our audience interacts with our work, and that that shouldn't be the decision of some giant tech company. I'm published traditionally by Macmillan, primarily through their Tor imprint, but also through First Second for my graphic novels and picture books. And I publish nonfiction with various publishers around the world as well. And I think the reason I'm on this panel is that I have foregone probably enough money to buy a house because I won't allow Amazon to publish my audio or to carry my audiobooks because they refuse to give authors the choice to not have DRM on their audiobooks. And they control 90% of the audiobook market. And if you don't go with Audible, no one finds out about your work. And this year, I published the third Little Brother book. The first two books were New York Times bestsellers and were translated into many languages and adapted for the stage and optioned for screen and so on. And I knew that this third book would be a big book. Macmillan was putting a big push behind it. And so I retained my audio rights because Macmillan did not want to buy the audio rights to a book that couldn't be sold on the dominant platform. And I produced my own audiobook. I live in Southern California, so we have some very good audio studios. I went with Skyboat Media, who are the same people that Macmillan uses. And I got my friend Amber Benson, who played Tara on Buffy, to record the audio and paid her union scale and had it professionally mastered. And then I pre-sold it on Kickstarter. And as a way of trying to demonstrate that authors who have a following don't need to allow a monopolist to lock their works to its platform in perpetuity in order to do well through an audiobook release. And that Kickstarter raised $270,000 and closed a couple of weeks ago. And both the book and the audiobook are now available, and they're available in all the places that you would normally go and buy a book. But the audiobook is an Audible exclusive in the sense that it's exclusively not on Audible. You can get it on Google Play and Libro.fm, and I operate my own website with a web store. You can get it on Downpour and all the other places, but not the dominant platform that doesn't allow the creators to decide whether or not their work will be locked in a proprietary format, even beyond the term of copyright.
I have to ask, are you in a swing?
I am. I'm in my bar, which has swings. We built a
Yay.
bar during the plague. And so, yes, I'm in our backyard bar.
That's great. All right. All right. Just really quickly, I'm Shannon Lawrence. I'm the moderator today. I write primarily horror, primarily short fiction. I am traditionally published in terms of, I've been published in magazines and anthologies and such through publishers. And then when I get the rights back on my short stories, I make them into my own collections with some new ones and put them out so that I can kind of reclaim the money being made on those stories. And I should have shared this before. And this is my upcoming cover. Well, it won't let me move it now that I shared the screen, but this is my book coming out on November 20th. That's all holiday stories, not just Christmas, to be clear. So all horror. All right. So Brenda, I'm going to start with you. Now you've done all your publishing through Amazon, you said, right? With your publisher. Let's talk about making a publishing house first, or, getting a publishing name. How did you go about that? Why did you do it?
So when I pulled my book from the original publisher, I did it because I felt like I was spending a whole lot of money and not getting any returns. And I said, I didn't know what I didn't know. And going through the process, I found out a lot of stuff I paid thousands of dollars for. I could have done it for a couple hundred, and I thought, you know what? The only reason they could get into those things was because they were a publisher. So I said, well, what if I just make my own publishing company? So I came up with a name. I went and did an LLC. And so I run all my writing and my everything I spend on the books and on the writing, I run it through Shine Your Light Publishing. And that's what I put on the label. Now through Amazon, if you don't go straight Amazon, which is fine. I did that with the first one with Laughing Your Life Healthy, and I never moved it. I just left it. They give you your ISBN number. So to do it yourself, you have to go buy your ISBN numbers. So I bought a block of 10 just to start, and I haven't quite used them all. And I put the ISBN on everything, and then I run it. I still publish it through Amazon. So it still doesn't cost me anything to do it, except that my ISBN number costs me. But that gives me the ability to put the books in bookstores. And that's why I did it, because if you publish straight through Amazon, bookstores don't want to carry the books because Amazon is their competitor. Now I've had a small, metaphysical bookshop carry Laughing Your Life Healthy because they didn't care. But that's the only one that still says Amazon is a publisher. And maybe I'll redo it later, but right now it doesn't seem that important. The other books are more important. So that was why I did it. It costs, to do an LLC here in Colorado, it's less than $50. And it's $25 a quarter or a half a year. So no, not a quarter, half a year to keep it up. And you don't sell a whole lot of books. It's what you do with the books that makes your money. So I haven't had to pay a whole lot of taxes on it either. So it helps because it's a business write-off when it comes to be tax time, because everything I put into it. But yeah, I had a really bitter taste in my mouth from the first company that I worked with. And I felt like they took advantage of me, and I had to find a way to get around that. My first book, Harlem Angel, took me 25 years to publish it. And so, because it took 25 years to write it, I didn't have 25 years to wait for one of the big houses to pick me up. And because my stories have an underlying, racism is the underlying thing in them, that the agents and editors have been afraid. My rejection letters were really nice. It's not that it's a bad book, it's really good. I just don't know how I'd sell it. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help me. So I figured I'd do it myself.
I wonder if you ended up doing it now, where all of a sudden they've finally become, I think, a little braver about that, a little more aware and seeking that. I wonder how that would have gone different.
I don't know, but there's nothing wrong with anyone coming at me with a check, but that's the deal. Somebody's got to come at me and say, we're going to give you a check and then we'll publish you. And then I'm going to have to still think about it, because being self-published, you have control over the artwork for your cover. You have control over how much you're charging. I mean, and you give that all away when you take that check. So depends on whether I get all those credit cards paid off from the first venture.
It would be hard to let that percentage go of per book now that. Yeah. All right, Daniel, same question, because you said you actually have a publishing house.
Correct. It's a very small press. We publish in a limited number of genres. It's all fiction. But I started it up, since this is 23 years ago. And like she said, it's very easy to set up an LLC in Colorado. So that's what I did. Went to the Secretary of State's office in the Department of Revenue, did all the paperwork. I had been a member of Colorado Independent Publishers Association for a couple of years before I did it. So there's a lot of little tricks of the trade kind of things I had picked up from everybody over those couple of years before I did this. So we kind of hit the ground running. So that was pretty good. Our very first book won awards, so yay. Uh, but it's yeah, starting it up was kind of the easy part. Then the rest of it is actually getting into the nuts and bolts of the publishing. And I'm probably the opposite of most of the people who are at MileHiCon in that I loathe Amazon to the very existence of my core. And I will deal with them only to the extent that I have to. Now, they are the largest retailer in the world. Have to sell books through them. Can't get around that if I want to sell books. Okay, fine. I agree with the whole audio thing that he was talking about. We don't really deal much with audiobooks. I played with it. The cost to produce was still too high for me to get the money back easily, and I didn't have the money to put up front. So we discontinued doing audiobooks. I don't mess with that too much. But in just the production of books and ebooks, yeah, I fight with Amazon constantly because I don't use, I use Kindle just to publish Kindle books. I don't do it exclusive. I use Smashwords for everybody else on ebook. And because of that, Amazon treats me like shit. And so we fight constantly. They will do things like, one of their favorite things to do is to put up a listing for our book and put somebody else's book up as a picture. Recent one we had was they put the whole, everything about the book, all the information up, but then the buy stuff, the buy link was to send you to a bra company. So, I mean, they use stupid stuff like that to us because we don't use Kindle exclusively. And so I fight with them constantly. And I just got over a fight with them on a book that I do annually, a nonfiction book. It is a reporter's guide to the royal families of Europe is what it's called. And it's just like it sounds. It's a field guide. They told me they weren't going to carry it this year because all that information they said you can find easily enough on Wikipedia. I went back to them. I said, okay, so you're not going to cover any of the Peterson guides. You're not going to cover any bird watching guides. You're not going to cover anybody who wants to go look for wild African whatever, because that's all on Wikipedia. And we went back and forth and went back and forth. And finally, I threatened to sue them. And they finally decided to carry my book. But I was prepared to publish without them. So yes, I hate Amazon. Now, what was the question?
Wait, do I remember what the question was? It was about creating the publishing house rather than say just publishing through your name or Amazon as the publisher.
Right. As Brenda pointed out, having a publishing house on your book really opens up doors to you to where you can sell it. Putting it into bookstores, getting invited to conferences, going to trade shows for booksellers. I do all of that now because I have a publishing company. None of that would have been open to me simply as I'm a self-published author. So that's the main reason for having that publishing company set up. I did it initially to, when my publishing company my original publisher went out of business, I was originally setting it up with the thought of, I'll have a publishing company name on my books, even though it wasn't the original one. There'll be a new one who takes over the publishing. Fine. Then I decided, well, I can do this for other people too. So I started opening it up for others. And we've done some really good stuff since we opened up 3 years ago.
I've got some questions coming in. So after we're all finished with this question, we'll hit those. But just for people out there, instead of putting in chat where it's going to get lost to me and I'm going to have to go back and sort through it to try and find your questions again, please send actual questions and Q&A. Okay, Jim. Do you have, I don't know, did you set up an actual publisher through that? Is Amazon your publisher? How did you do it?
I have not set up as a publisher company, so to speak. So Amazon's kind of been the default publisher. I have, just in the last book or two, I did set up, or at least begin using a kind of a publisher trade name, which I think I registered with the state. I may have to go back and double check that. But just a trade name versus a publisher. But I have still been able to get a lot of the benefits of the publishing in terms of, basically putting it all in taxes as business expenses, that hasn't been a problem so far. Um, but I do actually have another LLC, kind of a business related LLC. So I could easily set up another one, and I guess I may have to explore the benefits of that as Daniel and Brenda alluded to. Have to look into that. One other note, again, back to the Audible point that was mentioned. I did do one of my books, how it produces an audiobook for Audible, which of course did cost money. As Daniel said, it cost money up front, and you may not recoup. I have certainly not recouped from that, the money from that. But I did recently, I was going to try to get it re-recorded, different voice, but also on like the third edition of that book now. And so it's quite a bit different from when I had it first done. So I contacted Audible about taking it down with the complete intent of having it redone and then sent back to them. And they said, hey, no, you can't do that. You're locked into kind of a period of time, which was a surprise. It didn't work out for me to get it re-recorded anyway, so not a big deal at the moment. But that is kind of another cautionary note there.
So Corey, I know that you're traditionally published. So I'm going to go to you on these, and if you have an opinion, if you have something like that, just let us know that.
No, well, I long ago, actually, after Mike Ford, John M. Ford died, Neil Gaiman started to ask writers to really think about how they could do estate planning for their copyrights. And that's what spurred me to incorporate a family business that my copyrights are vested in. And so I do have an LLC as well. And it's part of how we make sure that if I die, my copyrights will be managed by people who I think understand my best interest. The background there is that when Mike Ford died, his polyamorous partner, to whom he wasn't legally married, was shut out, and his evangelical family, who disapproved of his work, got the rights to his work and took it off the market. And so, I have an LLC as well, and the tax benefits are real. I would caution you that if you earn a loss through your LLC long enough, you could face an audit, and so you definitely want to be writing off expenses that are commensurate with a reasonable expectation of recouping. In terms of this Amazon lock, I mean, I think we've heard some interesting stories in this of interventions. We can think about the contemporary market for lots of things, whether that's Amazon or Uber or record labels or poultry farming, as a kind of pinch with an hourglass on either side of it. And on one side you have the buyers, and on the other side you have the sellers, and in the middle you have platforms who figured out how to stick a toll booth between them and to charge toll going in both directions. And I think that's really what we're seeing with Amazon. There's a kind of flywheel effect where, if you like Amazon Kindle Unlimited, which dominates many subgenres, you will sign up for it, but you can never take your books out of it, right? You don't own those books. They're books as a service. You also can't get them anywhere else. One thing that I think we haven't noted yet is that Amazon exclusives, where Amazon serves as the publisher, are not sold to libraries on any conditions, at any price. So about half of the best-selling audiobooks are Audible originals. They cannot be checked out of any library in the world. No Kindle Unlimited fiction, that is where Amazon serves as the publisher, can be checked out of any library in the world. And when Amazon is questioned about this, they either punt, or if you corner them, they say, well, why don't libraries just get everyone a Kindle subscription and an Audible subscription? And we could just use our tax dollars to just buy everyone a subscription to Amazon, which, for obvious reasons is not a great answer. But the fact that the audience for this work is on this side of the hourglass means that everyone who wants to reach that audience has to funnel into this side of the hourglass. And we've heard how once you're in the hourglass, it's hard to get out. Now, the more work this group of people pushes through the hourglass, the bigger the audience on this side of the hourglass gets. The bigger that audience is, the more compelled you are to get into this side of the hourglass. And it's a flywheel. And it gets faster and faster. And, I'm not saying this to shame anyone, because I buy stuff from Amazon too. you cannot shop your way out of monopoly capitalism. That's like in the name, right? Like if you could shop your way out of it, it wouldn't be a monopoly. And so much of our framing for all of this stuff has been as consumers, and consumers have no power, right? You are not an ambulatory wallet. You are a citizen. And, you know, before Ronald Reagan changed the way we enforced antitrust law, everything Amazon does, along with everything Facebook does and Google does and FedEx does and Purdue Pharma does and Purdue Poultry do, was illegal. And we are now seeing a resurgence of interest in enforcing anti-monopoly law with a new DOJ complaint against Google, with congressional hearings, with the European Union. I published yesterday a long analysis of the European Union's leaked enforcement regime for tech monopolies, which is like mind-blowingly rigorous. And so, you know, people got to do what they got to do. If you're a writer, you got to go where your audience is. We have only 5 publishers left, right? 5 major publishers. If they're not interested in you, you know, you're not going to like get a mimeograph machine and hand out pamphlets at the grocery store, right? You're going to end up on Amazon. That's how you're going to find your audience. But we got to do it with our eyes open, right? We got to know that we are accelerating the flywheel. We got to be attuned to the politics of this stuff, the opportunities for us as citizens, not as creators, not as consumers, but as citizens, to make our concerns about this known and to hold the people in power to account.
And just a little different, I actually did, the light in this office is all over the place now. I actually did a sole proprietorship after research instead of an LLC. So I wish, I've been trying to remember the name of the books that I went through to learn the legalities of all this specifically for writers, and I haven't been able to. But there are some really good resources for people, accountants and lawyers who have put out books just giving you information on how to do it. And I know they break it down into if you do an LLC, if you do a sole proprietorship, C Corp, et cetera. So I did do this sole proprietorship, do have a publishing house under that for my books, not for any sort of other wide distribution. And like Brenda said, it's not expensive each year. It's for, I think I pay, it's like $20 a year or something to the Secretary of State, that just so everybody knows that you need to go through that for your doing business as, for your trade name. So yeah, pretty easy. We've had a bunch of questions, and several are about Smashwords. So Daniel, you use Smashwords, I've used Smashwords. Has anybody else used Smashwords or another platform?
Yep, me too. I like them.
Great. Yeah. So Daniel, I'll ask you about Smashwords, and anybody else who use, is there anything else that you go through?
For ebooks, I only use Smashwords and Kindle. I use Kindle specifically for Kindle. I use Smashwords for everybody else. Ingram Spark offers to do ebooks. I have not explored it with them. They do a really good job on our paperbacks, so I would suspect they would do a good job on ebooks, but like I said, I haven't really looked into it. So far, Smashwords has not given me a reason to look elsewhere. Smashwords, one of the things I do like about them is they are picky. They're picky about formatting. They're picky about having that EPUB properly built. They will zap it back to me if I screw something up. So I do like them for that, because Kindle will not. Kindle will publish whatever shit you give them as you give it to them. So if you give something that is going down the page like this, they will publish it going down the page like this. So anyway, now one of the things I do like to say about, you said something about you can't get away from shopping on Amazon. I can't remember the last time I bought something on Amazon. I go to great lengths to not spend money on Amazon. I do not own a Kindle, I own a Nook. So I get my ebooks through Barnes & Noble. Paperback books, I always, physical books, even through hardback, I always go through bookshop.org, which is a wonderful organization that the proceeds from it benefits independent bookstores across the country. During this pandemic, so many of them have gone out of business. And anything we can do to support them, go for it. If you go to the DX Veros website, all of our paperback links will direct you to bookshop to buy the paperback book. So, and then for ebooks, it directs you to whoever the owner of the ebook reader is. Nook will take you to Barnes and Noble and Kobo to Kobo and that kind of thing. For those who don't know what Kobo is, it's an ebook reader that is very prominent outside the United States, mostly Canada. Canada's big on Kobo. Independent bookstores in the United States, they've started kind of liking Kobo and try to link to them as much as they can, but physical bookstores and ebooks just don't gel very good together. So it hasn't been a big thing. And I get rambling and I always forget the original question. Oh, Smashwords.
Sir, this is an Arby's.
Sorry. Yeah, so the Smashwords is, yeah, it's a wonderful platform, and I definitely recommend people try to avoid using the Amazon only stuff. The Kindle, what do they call it? Kindle Direct? Is that what it is? The only process? They give you a little bit more money, but when you're talking about per ebook, that little bit more money is a few cents per ebook is the way it works out. So it's not a huge amount more money. To get that money, you're then losing all the money that you might make selling your book through Nook, Kobo, Apple. That's the other big ebook one is Apple. So when you go through Kindle Direct, you don't get all those other people buying books. I refuse to buy a book from an author who does Kindle only. I just won't do it. If they want, and I've seen some bigger publishers do their stuff through Kindle only. There's a particular mystery writer who I absolutely love, and he went to a different publisher and they started doing him Kindle only, and I haven't read the last of his 4 books because I can't get them on my Nook, and I'm not going to download a Kindle app, and I'm not going to spend money on a Kindle book. So that's where I am with that.
And Ingram Spark, what is your experience with Ingram Spark been?
It's been very, very good. I've not had too many troubles with them. Every once, if they do cause a problem, they correct it right away. I mean, they're a huge company, so every once in a while they do screw something up. Like right now, I'm waiting on an order of books that disappeared into the ether, but they got right on it and they're sending me another batch. Yeah, I have no problem with Ingram Spark. There's a little bit of a cost to upload books. But you very often will be given, if you look around, you can usually find promo codes to help defray those costs. It's not much to begin with. It's $50 to upload a book to them. And then if you have to upload new versions later, they hit you again because it's $25 for the interior, $25 for the exterior.
And just so, because somebody asked about Barnes and Noble out there, Smashwords distributes to Barnes and Noble, but I don't know that it gets I don't think it gets your books on the shelves unless you saw some big sales, but they do have it available on their website. So I have my book through my first book through Smashwords and Amazon. And so it is on there. If you go to barnesandnoble.com, both the paperback and the ebook are for sale on Barnes and Noble. So for those who are asking about that, you can distribute that way. Ingram Spark is, since it's a branch, there's 2 big book distributors. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've got Baker and Taylor. You've got Ingram, right?
Baker and Taylor went out of business.
Yeah, Baker and Taylor just
Oh, they
exited.
did?
It's now we've got we no longer have both kinds, country and Western. Now we've got what they used to call in the Soviet Union, the People's Choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have Ingram and we have Ingram.
All right.
But
So-
one of the things through Ingram Spark is that your physical book. If you go through Ingram Spark versus Amazon, you have a much better chance of getting it into a Barnes & Noble store. There is actually, Barnes & Noble has a small publisher department that you can submit your book to. If you're an independent publisher, if you're a self-published person, you can go to them. You submit to them, you explain the book, you tell them what you're going to do to drive up sales. Usually, if you're a small press like us, they will usually put the book in the bookstores in the city where the author lives, expecting that author to drive traffic there, which is fine. That's something. It gets us into some stores at least. And then when we start selling it up, then it goes out bigger. We have one that's here in Denver because it just came out last month. It is now being carried in all the Barnes and Nobles in Colorado. They're selling very, very well, so we might go a little farther than Colorado. We'll see. But that's been going very well for us.
Okay. Let me look at the Q&A really quick. And other good things, because Eric had said I'm unfamiliar with Smashwords. What are the good things about Smashwords? Something else is the guy who started it is it Mark something.
Yeah.
He's big against doing the DRM protections. Now you still can if you go through Smashwords, I believe, but they encourage you not to, and you can read why on the website. So I did not enable DRM when I did it through Smashwords. And I mean, if it shows up on the pirated sites, it shows up on the pirated sites. They can usually break into that DRM anyway, so that people know, which is supposed to be a protection so that they can't pirate your books. Yeah, so chances are, even if you enable it, it's going to happen anyway. Somebody's going to get their hands on it one way or another. But all right.
Can I talk about pirated sites for a second?
Sure.
Hold on. Corey, did you out?
Oh, no, you go ahead first.
Okay, Daniel.
On the pirate issue, that is something that a lot of authors put a lot of concern into, and they really shouldn't. The amount of money you lose to a pirate site is like next to nothing. So don't even sweat if your book is pirated. That's more people seeing your book and talking about it. Then when they talk about it, people will go to the normal places they would go, Amazon, unfortunately, or wherever, to buy the book. So it actually does help you in marketing. So just don't sweat the pirating stuff. Okay, that's all I had to say.
I wanted to say apropos Smashwords, I beg your pardon, someone's just started a bandsaw next door, which is what you want when you turn your mic on. I wanted to say apropos Smashwords that there's two very similar companies. There's Smashwords and BookBaby. BookBaby grew out of CD Baby, and the real difference is with Smashwords you pay them up front, and they take a much lower commission. And with BookBaby, you don't pay them up front, but the commission is higher. And it really is about how much volume you think you're going to drive and how much cash flow you have. And, I've done a couple of projects through each, and I think they're both very good. Both of them also have a bunch of add-on services of varying degrees of quality, like book design, cover design. I just checked in with Smashwords and see they've started a Facebook ad service where they broker author ads, where I suppose they give you some direction on how to navigate the Facebook ad interface and so on. So all of that stuff is available through both of them. And I think that's their bread and butter. Also proofreaders and all of that business.
So it's been a bit since we got to engage Brenda and Jim. Have you, I'll start with, I guess, Jim, what have been your experiences with getting your book in local bookstores? Have you tried to do that with small local bookstores at all?
I have not really tried. I would obviously like to do that. But I have not pursued that effort much. I have not done, for instance, as Brenda mentioned, buying the ISBNs. So they have real ISBNs versus ASINs from Amazon. I haven't done that. I have looked at using some of the other platforms we've just discussed, Smashwords and so forth. I've looked at it briefly, but I haven't done it yet, mainly because it's just one more thing to spend time learning and figuring out. But I have looked at that, and I've talked to several other authors on terms of how they do that. One point that one of them made is that they will often do Amazon exclusive when the book first comes out, because they expect to see the volume there, and then after the first few months change it from exclusive, so that they can then also put it on these other platforms. I've intended to experiment with that, but I just haven't gotten there yet. But I have gone through the process of making a book Amazon exclusive, and then turning it off of Amazon exclusive. That does work, but you get I think it's a 3/4 window that once it's in there, you can't take it out until the end of that quarter.
Brenda?
It hasn't been a problem.
Sorry, Jim.
I was just going to say, it hasn't been a problem to do that. I just haven't then made much use of it because I haven't explored these other platforms.
And then Brenda, how about you on local bookstores, that sort of thing?
So I've had Harlem Angel was in at book bar, and my consignment contract just ended, and I went to pick it up. I missed her email because I told her book 2 was out, and she wants to put at least one copy of each. You know, they're running out of space, and I just haven't made it back by there to drop them off. So book bar, I've got the nonfiction books. I've got one in a metaphysical bookstore in Littleton, and then one over in University Hills Plaza. My second book is in there. As far as other bookstores for the fantasies, I just haven't. It takes time. You have to go to them. Like Book Bar just reopened the week before last. In fact, they were just open. The day I picked up the books was the first day they had opened their book room back up. So I will get back over there and get my books in there. And then I'll look at some others. It just takes it. I mean, it takes time. You can't really do that without some face-to-face, whether you do it on a Zoom or in person. Tattered cover is expensive. So I haven't tried because they're expensive. My books are not generating yet enough to do that. I carry a supply in my trunk, and when people ask, I say, well, I've got a copy. You know, when things get to where we're open again, I do want to, there's a couple of bookstores I want to hit and try. Tattered cover, maybe they will be hungry and will reopen it again and bring their costs down a bit. You know, we'll see what happens.
How did you get your books into Book Bar? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? Did you do a reading?
So I did a reading there. They had a science fiction and fantasy night last year. And I'm a member, you have to be members of something. I'm a member of a group called At the Inkwell. And they were hosting the night at the Book Bar. And so I went and I did a reading. I shared the space with, I think there were 4 other authors that read. And it was really cool because as I was reading, you know, I try not to look up because then I lose my place, but I paused long enough to listen, and you could have heard a pin drop. I was like, oh, I got him. And they took several copies that night. I have worn, I've won the last 2 books and Harlem Angel. I've won Evie Awards from the SEPA, so that's helpful. You do the best you can to get it out there. With the first book through that, the publisher, the book was in a lot of the book shows. I did, it was in the New York Book Show, it was in the Frankfurt Book Show, and there was one other. And then I went to LA for the LA Book Festival that year. And my expectation was at least to get some orders like from libraries or from a couple of books, and I got nothing. And that was really expensive. And I thought, you know, I might do that, something like that again, but I'll do it on my own dime, all of it. Because when I found out how much a booth costs and, you know, you get a couple of authors to go in there, I had to pay for my travel and hotel myself anyway. So I could do that myself and probably get a better track. So, you know, I've sent it to libraries. I've had it go out to libraries. I'm a member of Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers. I've had it in their publication. It's a book. I believe, although I can't really tell, that a bookstore in Japan bought it. And that was through Amazon, but because I keep getting royalties from Japan, which I think is really weird, but okay.
You never know where you'll be a hit.
I know, yeah, okay, I'll take it.
Shannon, could I just add one thing I should have mentioned?
Mhm.
So one other platform for lack of a better word, that I did explore, is there's um, a kind of a ebook sharing system through most of the Colorado libraries, where they will share a book, obviously free, through there. And I've talked to quite a few people about the the visibility benefits that can provide potentially. And so I explored that, and I went and I put one of my books out there. However, I found two issues with that, uh, both definitely my own fault. One was that I didn't have the book in the format that they wanted it to initially, because I just had it in the Kindle format. I didn't have it in one of the standard EPUB or whatnot formats. So I had to do that real quick. The other thing I found after I had already got it through the process and so it was on there, was I found out, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that if you have it on Amazon as an exclusive. You're violating the terms of your agreement. So I had to very quickly try to get the book taken down, which took a while. Now I could have just taken it out of Amazon exclusive, but that again has that quarterly window, so I would have had to wait in either case. But that is where I would suggest that's worth exploring if you're not opposed to giving away a few books, and if you don't have a contract relationship that limits you from doing so.
I will say that I had my first book at Book Bar. And I also approached Poor Richards down here in Colorado Springs, and they put my books up there. And they even have a local author's focus shelf there, which is another reason to go visit your small bookstores in your neighborhood, because they're going to be happy to, some of them at least, to put a spotlight on you if you're a local author and try and push that a little bit harder. So I sold out of the first bunch of books I gave to them. There was a contract so that people know. They asked questions about what was in the book, the content, that sort of thing. And yeah, it was actually pretty easy. It was just, again, getting the time. Like Brenda said, I've got teens, I've got other stuff to do. So it's tricky getting that time to go down there. But it's worth it to get your name out there locally and to have that focus from them. Most of them, if you go in and ask somebody working at that bookstore, they'll give you a business card or a contact name for the person that handles whether they take that in, so that people know. And then you can just contact them. I was lucky in that the person who did it was there when I went in, but he gave me his card so that if he hadn't been there, I could have emailed him, I could have called him, that sort of thing. So yeah, and Book Bar, I did it the same way. So I don't know how one approaches Book Bar, but I had readings there with it was actually because of another anthology I was in, did a launch there. And then they allowed us to give them other books to consign so that people know. So you're consigning it, they're taking a little piece of it, and then they send you a check for your part. Daniel, you look like you wanted to say something on the topic.
I was just going to say, I have all my authors do exactly that. They live all over the country. So I have them go to their, whatever city they're in, go to their local bookstores, focus on the independents. Now, I'll handle Barnes & Noble, you focus on the independent. That's kind of the agreement I have with them. And they go there and they talk about their book and they get them in those local bookstores. And that drives up their sales through Ingram and they drives up the royalties.
And then Corey, have you had to do that at all with the traditional? Have you tried to do that?
No, I mean, I did my own short story collection at one point. I had done a couple with mid-sized presses, and there was a great kind of extinction event among mid-sized presses when American Entertainment Group, which was the largest distributor in the country and had acquired Publishers Group West, which was the people who distributed all the quality presses in New York. Their entire C-suite was let out of the office in handcuffs by the FBI. And that was the end of them. And that was the week that one of these presses was publishing my work, and they effectively went under immediately, were bought by another press that went under immediately, and so on. And so I thought, okay, for the next one, let me see how it goes. And so I did a short story collection as a self-published work, and it was fine. It did well commercially, and I tried a whole bunch of different things. Like I did a super limited hardcover that I sold for $275, and I did a really cheap ebook, and I did, you know, everything in between audio that I distributed as a podcast and as a traditional audiobook, and all the other stuff. And it did fine, but it took a lot of time. And I looked back on it when I was done and said, I could have spent that time writing and made more money. And if I wanted to administer a small business, that would have been the career I chose. And, you know, it was fun. And the part of it that I found most satisfying, and that I am probably going to do more of, although I say that every year and have yet to actually do it, are super limited edition hardcovers that I sell to fans who really enjoy my work, where there's a kind of long-term connection to them. There's something very fun about making a book that's very, very distinctive. Particularly finding craftspeople who can make them. I was living in London at the time. We had a bindery in East London called the Wyvern Bindery that was a multi-generational bookbinder, and every book that I had bound with them was different, because I could go into the binder whenever I got an order and choose binding materials and so on. And we bound in, I solicited from other writers bits of paper ephemera, you know, everything from contracts to, you know, Jay Lake sent me his cancer diagnosis, and I bound them in as the end papers for each of these books. So each one was different and had this original ephemera. That was very fun, and something that I could easily see doing again, and as a way of just completely sidestepping the whole business of Amazon and all the rest of it. You know, I think there's not much point in retailing a $12 POD that you pack and ship yourself. The margins are very thin, and it has to be a labor of love. You're not going to be paying yourself very much, but you know, at that very high price point, you can actually scrape a pretty decent margin of sort of $100 a book, and also cement a long-term relationship with a super fan. Plus, it's just fun. It's like fun to go into some craftsperson's workshop and have like a long conversation about bookbinding and how they bind and what materials you can use and what cool stuff is available, and then just like handle each one as a distinctive one-off item. It's amazing. So it's spectacular, really.
Yeah, not something I've thought about, but I've seen authors do it. So
Yeah.
interesting. I think that's something to be possible through Ingram Spark for people who are self-publishing, or through, but an individual binder, even better.
And I think there's something really cool about a purchase that is like buying a sword from Inigo Montoya's father, where it's like, yes, I will sell you this book, but you will wait 8 months while I have the book made, and then I will deliver it to you, and it will be the greatest physical object you can imagine. And there's something kind of mystical about it, you know. And if you only sell one a year, then you have once a year where you get to go and hang out with a bookbinder. So.
Cool. So just so people know, we did get permission to go to 3:35 because we started a little bit late. I've had a bunch of questions about ISBNs, and then so I'm going to ask in a second if anybody's confident to kind of give a quick education about ISBNs, and then after that we'll get final statements from everybody. I know we didn't get to cover, you know, 50 minutes, an hour never seems very long once you're talking about all these things, but anything that you want to throw out there at the end for people to know. I know we didn't get to a lot of the questions, guys, but hopefully you got more information elsewhere. So does anybody want to quickly kind of go over ISBN information so that people understand more about that? Where do you get it? Somebody asked, do you have to have ISBNs to do that? I assume that was when we were talking about hand selling them to bookstores.
If you want your book in a bookstore, you have to have an ISBN on it. The ISBN comes through one organization called Bowker. That's BOWKER. If you put Bowker into your search engine, it'll pull it right up for you. The more of them you buy at a time, the cheaper they are. So if you're going to be writing lots or publishing for other people like I do, it's beneficial to buy them in lots of 100. because then they're only $1 a piece. When you buy them one at a time, what is it, 99, Brenda? Yeah, so yeah, 99 if you buy just one. So you can spend the same amount of money to get one, or same amount of money to get 100 of them, however you want to do that.
Yeah.
You have to have different ISBNs on different versions of your book. So if you're going to do a hardback, a paperback, an ebook, an audiobook, now audiobooks don't really have to have them, but all those other ones do have to have a different ISBN. If
They
you're
don't?
going to do Amazon only, Amazon will provide you what's called an ASIN, which is Amazon something individual number. Stock
SKU.
individual number, SKU, thank you.
SKU.
And that will replace the ISBN, but then you can only use it on Amazon. You can't use that number to sell it anywhere else. So basically an ISBN is it's International Books ISBN, International Standard Book Number. And it is something you need on every book. If you want to sell your book outside the United States, you got to have that ISBN on there. They don't care about an ASIN at all. Nobody outside of Amazon will care about an ASIN.
And in the United States, you don't have to have an ISBN for an ebook. I put them on mine because I want the stamp on there.
Right.
I do the same.
Yeah.
Well, one will have to be on there. It's a question of, is it yours or is it the people who made the ebook
Right.
for you?
Right.
Because if you go through Smashwords, for example, they will offer to give you a free one,
Right.
which that's fine. If you're not going to be publishing a lot of books, or you're doing a self-publish and you don't have a publisher name to put on there to begin with, take the free one. Go for it. Save some cost. But what I did for my publishing company is I bought a lot of 100. So when I put them on there, every book shows, no matter, published by DX Varosh Limited.
Yeah, if there is an option, I always opt to use my own ISBN number, so that, and that was after research and everything, just to make sure that it belongs to me and only me, and so that I have it for that legal distribution. All right, so it's time for final comments. And again, I'll start how we introed. So Jim, you're at the top of my screen. Do you have anything final you want to say that we didn't cover, or just a final statement?
Just like I said, I'm maybe newer to publishing than many of you, but so far I've had pretty good luck just going the Amazon route. But I do know I need to explore some of these other avenues. For instance, I don't have ISBNs, but I've got to get some of those and work on adding those. But it's definitely been an interesting topic, hearing the very different perspectives here. Just wanted to mention I finished the first draft of my latest book, also in the Mana Saga series this morning. So I will then be, of course, going into the painful editing process over the next couple of months, and hope to get it out around the first of the year. Thank you.
Brenda.
Okay. The only thing I can add to the discussion is just before you sign anything with anybody, read all the words, even the stuff that's too little to read. Get a magnifying glass, read everything, because if you're working with someone else, they're banking on you not knowing what you're doing. In doing it myself, I learned a whole lot from that experience. And so now I'm just taking my time. In my publishing company, I could publish other books, and I will, my plan is to put a small package together so you get an ISBN and my logo, but you're doing all the work, because I don't have time to write and publish other people's stuff. I just don't. But I have a list of editors and resources that I can share, and that'll, with the ISBN number and the use of my logo, that'll be a cost. I just haven't put it together yet because I've been writing. Book 3 of the series, my target to finish is by the end of January, so that I can get it out by the end of April, when I publish this year. And it's coming along. Takes me I have a friend that writes 50,000 words a month, and I just can't figure out how she does that. I'm not that good. So it takes me about a year to get it done. It's almost done. And if you're interested in the stories, take a look at them.
And what is your press name again?
Shine Your Light Publishing.
All right, Daniel.
Kind of just to recap everything we've talked about. One of the things to point out is, yes, publishing your own book is a lot of work because you have to do everything yourself. If you go through a publisher, I personally, I started my own publishing company. I knew when I started it, I wouldn't have a lot of time for writing. Since I've had the publishing company, I've not written anything. I've published one book of short stories that was already written. Over the course of 10 years, I managed to write 5 books. But now I'm working on my 5th book now. It's almost done, and slowly but surely. So I'm doing a lot more work, spending a lot more time working for my other authors. Can't think of anything else. There was something else I was going to add. I can't have forgotten what it was. So sorry.
And what was your press name?
It's dxvarosh.com or dxvarosh Limited. The website is dxvarosh.com.
And then Corey.
Well, I wanted to say 2 things. The first is to remind you that many of our books are available online through the con in the dealer's room, and they have signed book plates for me, at least. I don't know about the other authors on the panel. And I just wanted to say in closing that although ebooks are new and clearly lean on new technologies, that the restructuring of our relationship to books is a profound thing that is going on under our noses with very little people remarking on it, right? Recall that like books are not only older than printing and copyright and publishing, they're older than paper. And we have a long, largely informal social contract about books, and it doesn't have to stay the same forever, and things change for good reasons. But the idea that some, jumped up would-be Tony Stark can hire some callow lawyer to draft a garbage novella of legalese and just unilaterally rewrite a history that goes back to the earliest days of literacy, and just say, by being stupid enough to buy my book this way, you agree that I can come over your house and punch your grandmother and wear your underwear and make some long distance calls. That is completely and totally illegitimate. And we really do need to sit back as the people of the book, right? As the people who know each other through our reading and who came together as a community through our reading and our writing. We really need to call time on this and say, what do you mean books don't act the way they've acted since time immemorial? You may be right, but when did we decide that? Because I think we should have a say.
Absolutely. And my final statement is just treat it like you would starting any other type of business. Do your research, make sure you know what you're getting into, make sure you've done, what is going to be marketed best. Understand that you're going to be your own marketer. And that's true whether you're traditionally published or self-published, really, at this point, just in different degrees maybe. But do your research, look up the books. Don't just look for what somebody said on a blog. See if there's books by accountants, by lawyers that are applicable, that you can look at the information that you're doing. And good luck. And thank you so much for hanging in there with us. And thank you to the panelists. Great talk. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Hey, I'm going to be talking about this in my guest of honor hour in 1 hour, 3:30 Pacific, 4:30 Denver, if anyone wants to hear me talk about it.
Cool.
And don't forget to come check out Author's Row.
Yes, we're on Author's Row.
Yes. My publishing company is there as well.
All right. Goodbye, all.
Bye.
Thanks, all.